You're listening to the Tony Kinnett Cast on 93 WYBC.
WCYTV.
Here on the Daily Signal.
Good evening and welcome to the Tony Kinnett Cast here on the Daily Signal, nationally syndicated first on 93 WYBC out of Indianapolis. Whether you're joining us from radio, TV, on the live stream side of things this evening, we're glad that you're here because we have a major exclusive scoop from the State Department. For a very long time, there has been a policy in place called the Mexico City policy. It's been around since it's back in the Cold War days, in which the federal funding that goes to foreign aid is to entirely restrict any government organization, any NGO from providing abortion services or advocacy for abortion services in countries abroad. Because again, the idea is that taxpayer funding is not supposed to go to abortion. And then Bill Clinton stepped into office and he got screwy and he flipped things around real quick. And then it flipped back. And then during the Obama administration, it went a lot further and then it went away. And then we got to the Biden administration and it gets far worse. And also a lot of foreign funding going to DEI and transgender comic books and plays in South America and the promotion of transgenderism as an AIDS solution in Africa and all other kinds of really insane pseudoscience policies that have flooded the State Department. And the State Department had become a legacy organization of the Clintons. They staffed, they funded, they ran all of the little NGOs that got close to it. They had every single finger of their organizations in the staff emails, no pun intended with Hillary Clinton emails, of the State Department. And now, finally, we could be looking at a major change in said policy. And I cannot stress, at least by myself, this any further. So we now move over to our White House correspondent, Elizabeth Mitchell, whom I'm breaking a cardinal rule with. Normally, you're supposed to give your correspondents a couple of minutes so they are not literally coming on the show from their dining room table. That's how big of a story, that is how big of a scoop this is. Elizabeth Mitchell, thank you so much for joining us.
Great to be here.
So just right away, this is a major change. Tell us why.
This is a big change because the Trump administration is rewriting the Mexico City policy in a brand new way. So the Mexico City policy is what makes sure that U.S. funding does not go to foreign abortions. And so this is something that every Democrat administration has overturned and every Republican administration has brought back. So it was rescinded under Biden. Trump 1 had the Mexico City policy, rescinded under Biden. Trump 2 brought it back. And now it's new and improved Mexico City policy because now it also includes a ban on funding for gender ideology and DEI programs. It closes loopholes that have previously allowed taxpayer funding for promotion of abortion. And it prohibits a broader range of non-governmental organizations from funding abortion. So this applies to all non-military foreign assistance. All non-military foreign assistance cannot fund abortion or DEI or gender ideologies. This is a really big win for the pro-life movement, a big win for conservatives in general.
I want to frame up the analysis on this real quick because Mexico City policy came about under the Reagan and then the following George H.W. Bush administrations in the State Department. The idea was that our civilian-based foreign aid wasn't going to fund things that were antithetical to the United States. And then in 1993, Bill Clinton came in and he just kind of wiped it all away because Hillary really loves abortions. And that became a returning to, like a dog returneth to its vomit style policy. The Clinton administration, the Obama administration, and then the Biden administration. This is literally Hillary Clinton's legacy. And I want to point that out in this one congressional testimony that we have record of in 2009. Representative Smith, Republican of New Jersey, asked Hillary Clinton if the State Department was directly funding abortions. And she said that, well, we fund reproductive health initiatives around the world. And, quote, reproductive health includes access to abortion, end quote. So Hillary Clinton has admitted to violating U.S. law through all of these various loopholes. Now, Marco Rubio is not only destroying that legacy, he's creating a pathway for future Democrat administrations not to have any loopholes, any possibility to sneak this stuff in anyway.
Absolutely. There were a lot of loopholes in the past because in the past, various programs that weren't included under the Mexico City policy could promote abortion, and now those loopholes are closed. So now HIV and AIDS programs, PEPFAR, maternal and child health, nutrition, and infectious disease programs like malaria and tuberculosis, all of those are specifically banned from promoting abortion or gender ideology. So this is a very large change. And I think that a poll from a few years ago showed that almost 80% of Americans do not want their taxpayer dollars going to fund foreign abortions. That includes people who do support a degree of legalized abortion within the United States. Even those people do not want their taxpayer dollars going to foreign countries, often third world countries, and funding abortions there. And so this really is a very popular measure with pro-life and pro-abortion people alike. But this is, of course, a big win for all of those who do not want their taxpayer dollars, who believe it violates their conscience for their taxpayer dollars to fund abortion and gender ideology.
Last question here, because I know that Russell Vogt from OMB, as well as Marco Rubio, are very interested in shaving down some of the fat at not only the State Department, but across the federal government. Of course, Secretary Rubio is wearing about, 6 or 7 different hats at any given time. But they have paid very special attention to the staffing inside the State Department, which has included a lot of carryover from the Obama and Clinton, and then, of course, the Biden administrations. What are you seeing right now from the State Department, kind of in communicating with them about this scoop, about changes in foreign policy? Is there anything that signals a closer look in the next couple of weeks at possibly additional staffing or policy changes?
Ultimately, the goal of the State Department is to make sure that we have an America First foreign policy. And I think it's pretty clear that an America First foreign policy does not include sending American dollars to fund foreign abortions and foreign gender transition surgeries. But that America First foreign policy is at every level of the State Department. And I think it's been clear since the beginning of the Trump administration that anyone who is not willing to adhere to that will be removed.
And people should understand, and I'll let you go after this. I'm sorry I'm breaking several cardinal rules now, but that's how important of a story this is. That if a government, let's just pluck one out of thin air. Let's say France wants to take foreign dollars from the United States, and France ties into any kind of a program, their DEI, racially segregationist and discriminatory, like kind of pseudo pro-Islamic nonsense, or they try to slide in their DEI stuff through LGBTQ nonsense. Those provisions now, no fungible money anymore from the State Department to just spend on whatever, that would immediately ban countries like France from receiving access to U.S. grants along the foreign aid front. That's this kind of measure. It's not just abortion anymore. It's a whole range of far left issues that European and other countries have been trying to shove down throats.
That's correct. And for the many Americans who are morally opposed to abortion and believe it takes an innocent unborn life, for those who believe that men are men and women are women and there's no switching in between, I think this is very comforting to know that over in France and Spain and Mexico, et cetera, America will not be supporting any sort of measures that violate their consciences.
Elizabeth Mitchell, our White House correspondent for the Daily Signal, thank you for taking a minute after a very busy day to give us a bit of a breaking update on this, and look forward to hearing from you soon.
Thanks, Tony. See you soon.
All right. I do want to mention really quick here, producer Daniel actually found the original Congressional committee clip. Basically, earlier than 2012, it's really, really hard to find footage from congressional committees. So it's easy for people from the Clinton administration or from the Obama administration or during the George W. administration. Well, a lot of those particular, and in the first Obama, it's very difficult to get clips from those congressional committees and subcommittees. So they can essentially say that they actually said whatever, and there's just a problem on the transcript. But I can't believe it, on this little account called RH Reality Check, and then some Hillary Clinton thing. Here is Hillary Clinton defending the entire apparatus of the State Department being to promote abortion around the world. This was on C-SPAN 3. That's next to ESPN's like The Ocho, but we've got the clip here. Thanks, producer Daniel. You can tell it's old because it's got like a PowerPoint cover.
Question: is the Obama administration seeking in any way to weaken or overturn pro-life laws and policies in African and Latin American countries, either directly or through multilateral organizations, including and especially the United Nations, African Union, or the OAS, or by way of funding NGOs like Planned Parenthood. And secondly, and so we can have total transparency. You know, as a former lawmaker, we always have definition pages when we write legislation. Definitions do matter.
By the way, you can tell this is how we used to do some congressional committee stuff. And there's two things that are a hallmark. Number one, even Hillary's about to fall asleep here because they're a little bit boring. B, back when it was assumed that once you were under oath, you would answer questions directly that were given to you, then it was on the questioner to essentially be as thorough as possible so you couldn't weasel your way out like someone's husband did, of the lady sitting in this particular chair.
Does the United States definition of the term reproductive health or reproductive services or reproductive rights include abortion? I yield to the distinguished gentleman.
Congressman, I deeply respect your passionate concern and views which you have championed and advocated for over the course of your public career. We obviously have a profound disagreement. When I think about the suffering that I have seen of women around the world, I've been in hospitals in Brazil where half the women were enthusiastically and joyfully greeting new babies, and the other half were fighting for their lives against botched abortions. I've been in African countries where 12 and 13-year-old girls.
So she proceeds to make the case for why her State Department would endorse fully abortions. Now, again, that legacy, they don't just rotate out the entire State Department staffs between administrations. Used to, the Democrats would add a bunch of people to the State Department. Republicans would add like 2 people, smaller government. They wouldn't fire anyone. And then it would just continue on sludging as this massive, gross, disgusting squid monster. And you would have, even in the Trump administration, Trump 1, you would have a State Department who worked against the Trump administration directly. We have all of the records from this from the House Oversight Committee. James Comer has been stellar on the House side, Representative Chuck Grassley on the Senate side, in exposing a lot of this rot. So the Senate became an entire, the State Department became an entire institution around promoting DEI, racial discrimination, gender transition nonsense, and of course, abortion, which violates, if you really consider how taxpayer dollars are supposed to be sent or regarding abortion, taxpayer dollars aren't supposed to fund abortions. So essentially, by Marco Rubio's team coming in, as Elizabeth Mitchell's article states, quote, the department will soon take additional steps to close loopholes that allowed taxpayer funding for promotion of abortion in previous iterations of the Mexico City policy and expand the scope of the policy to ensure every penny of U.S. foreign assistance prioritizes American values, not the woke agenda, end quote, a senior State Department official told the Daily Signal. Here's why that matters, guys. What are we just now getting into? A government shutdown. In a government shutdown, there's a lot of stuff that suddenly becomes possible for the executive branch to do, like close a few loopholes and adjust large level staffing, which just happens to be something that Russ Vought is quite focused on. Now, we're going to get to that. I do want to point out that Hillary Clinton continually being allowed to be a vestigial organ of the Democrat Party is going to screw them over in the midterms, and whatever goofball she ends up endorsing in 2028. So Hillary Clinton, of course, on MSNBC just a couple of days ago, saying that, well, we need to consider white Christian men in this country. Them's the problems.
We haven't gotten to the more perfect union, and we fought a civil war over part of it. Mm-hmm. And people have been protesting, for hundreds of years that, things were not as they should be given.
Remind me what your husband did as the governor of Arkansas regarding racial integration policy? Anyway.
Our ideals and how we should be moving toward them. So I think that's what makes us so special as a country. And the idea that you could turn the clock back and try to recreate a world that never was, dominated by, let's say it, white men of a certain persuasion, a certain religion, a certain point of view, a certain ideology, is just doing such damage to what we should be aiming for. And
because Hillary Clinton absolutely had, a couple of days ago, probably a little birdie whispering in her ear that her entire legacy, again, Hillary Clinton's legacy started in the State Department when she was the first lady with Bill Clinton. Hillary Clinton, when she was a senator, was laser focused on the State Department and what she could accomplish with it. And that would be the entire theme of her life's work. In the Obama administration, as soon as the Hillary Clinton nonsense was covered up and Hillary Clinton had to go into dormancy for a while, we had the Trump years, and then we get into the Biden time. And in the Biden time, Hillary Clinton's not officially necessarily in the government anymore, but she's still acting in a State Department fashion. You say, Tony, where are you getting that? When Elon Musk purchased Twitter, that being near the mid to end of the Biden administration, Hillary Clinton flew overseas to Berlin and called on the European Union to use the Digital Services Act to force Elon Musk into censoring American citizens on the platform. This was revealed earlier this afternoon via the Heritage Foundation. Check it out.
Free speech is in a free fall in Europe. There are two anti-free speech movements that have coalesced. One is in Europe, where it has laid waste to free speech. Germany, France, England, free speech has been eviscerated. And also places like Canada. The U.S. anti-free speech movement began in higher education, then metastasized throughout the government. But this has all reached our shores now. The Berlin World Forum followed the remarks of Vice President Vance on free speech, and the EU was red hot. They gathered in Berlin, and it was the most anti-free speech gathering I've ever been part of. There's only two of us from the free speech community. And they are committed. And, you know, Hillary Clinton was there, and she really fueled the anger. I mean, she, when Twitter was purchased by Elon Musk, she called on the EU to use the infamous Digital Services Act, which is one of the most anti-free speech pieces of legislation in decades. And she called upon the EU to use the DSA to force the censorship of American citizens.
I'm sorry, I want to make this very clear. When Elon Musk purchased Twitter and Germany came forward in the EU and said, we're going to use this piece of legislation whenever there's something an American says that's a no-no, there were people, by the way, if you have a Twitter account or an X account, you were around during this time, you would get emails because Twitter notified you, hey, letting you know the European Union is censoring your tweet and you could be liable for legal action against you in Germany. Like, you know, like the UK is currently arresting people for right now. That was not just the random German. That wasn't like Merkel, you know, busting in there. Did I do that? No, not Merkel, you know, stomping in and doing that. No, that's Hillary Clinton. Hillary Clinton went to the EU and advocated on your being censored and possibly litigated by the European Union. A direct action. Again, the entire Hillary Clinton legacy is wrapped up in the State Department. Now you know. Now you know why Hillary Clinton is back in front of the public and she's throwing a fit on every network she can get her hands on. Not because, believe it or not, not just because Trump's up there, you know, throwing tweets around, not because he's going through individuals who have committed crimes like mortgage fraud or perjury, or again, the more specific terms of obstruction of justice or lying to Congress, not because the grand jury indicted James Comey. Hillary Clinton is currently losing her mind because Marco Rubio, in a very quiet, specific, laser-focused Cuban-American fashion, is ripping her legacy to pieces. And there's nothing she can do about it. And also, like closing up the hole out of the first Death Star. No more trench exhaust port to fire torpedoes through. No. Second Death Star, we're not having that issue. Marco Rubio is making sure the next State Department, no more fancy Mexico City, Tijuana loopholes. And that is going to be devastating to the future executive rule. That can, by the way, you can only play that game if you play by the rules that are on the board. There are a lot of Republicans right now who are very angry that Russ Vought is moving through the government shutdown and firing people or saying, well, when they come back, they're not going to come back. They might be laid off. He's freezing funding. We're going to get to that in just a second. Funding to New York, which is terrifying. Hakeem Jeffries and Chuck Schumer. They are not having a good time. And as well as $8 billion canceled. Again, OMB Director Russ Vought canceling $8 billion in Green New Deal climate funding throughout the government shutdown for a whole list of states that, again, we'll get to. By playing by the rules that are on the table, you actually remove future administrations' abilities to come in and continue misusing the executive branch of government. It has to be done correctly, and it has to be done with care. Again, that's one of the reasons why Russ has been looking forward to a government shutdown. Now, that brings us to a couple of shutdown updates. This is a communications nightmare for the Democrats. News that we have coming in right now, 7:26 Eastern time. There is more and more that is looking worse and worse for the Democrats, and here's why. Bradley Devlin, the political editor at the Daily Signal, he called me yesterday when we were in the middle of prepping for the show, and he said, Tony, in the next 48 hours, we will know who the winner of this shutdown is because the communications war will be decided. The next 48 hours matters the most. How the Senate, how the House, how the pundits, how the news networks, how the office of the president, who he sends on air. The next 48 hours, that does not include a Sunday show where you can have some Margaret Brennan trying to lambast Republicans. All you've got is 48 hours. And every single hour in this 48-hour span has been a comms nightmare for the Democrat Party. We went into the shutdown saying there really was likely to be very little effect on the midterm election from this. Robert Netzle, the CEO of Inspire Investing, we're going to talk stock market stuff in a moment. He makes that point very well, better than I do. But right now, when the Democrats are trying to blame, at least from the official higher up levels, all of this on Republicans, they can't stop the dumbest members of the House of Representatives from recording themselves like girly influencers walking through Reagan Airport, talking about how excited they are, and yeah, they're going to shut the government down, and they'll do it if they have to. Sri Tanadar from Michigan, again, who got his wig that he is that's clearly a toupee or a wig, that he got from a used car dealership. Show me the Carfax on that wig. Sri Tanadar walking through DCA saying that, well, the Democrats, they had to do it. Of course, they loved being the ones to shut down the government.
Returning back to Detroit this morning after the Republicans failed to show up in the U.S. House. We got to make sure Americans have the health care that they need. And if that means we got to shut this government down, so be it.
Oh. Well, how about that? If we got to shut this government down, so be it. Of course, you remember from yesterday, Maxine Waters got backed into a weird corner by a Lindell TV reporter. The summation of that conversation is just that Maxine got very mad after openly admitting, for all Americans, that includes for her illegal immigrants.
But aren't Democrats demanding health care for illegal aliens?
That's right. Democrats are demanding health care for everybody.
Mm-hmm. So how do you move past that? Because now you've got to do damage control. Theoretically, you would have a strong head of the DNC, a Ken Martin, a David Hogg. Okay, not David Hogg. He's gone. Whatever non-binary person they replaced him with. You would expect DNC leadership. You would expect Chuckle Schumer to come out, maybe big iron on his hip playing and set the party straight. Hakeem Jeffries maybe would come out dressed like Malcolm X. I don't know, something like that. You'd have some leadership coming out of the party to say, look, I don't know what these kids in the lower committees that, the committee on the color of fire hydrants, I don't know what they're saying. This is our position. Has Hakeem done that? No. Instead, this is Hakeem Jeffries' damage control, and it's more erratic than watching two high schoolers try to flirt with each other.
From any of the legislative leaders on the Republican side, and the president has been engaging in irresponsible and unserious behavior, demonstrating that all along, Republicans wanted to shut the government down.
There you go. There's the argument from Hakeem. Not, here's what we want. Here's why we believe it is important. Here's why we believe that the COVID-era subsidies via the Obamacare mechanisms of government need to continue so that states like Minnesota, California, and Illinois, again, according to the Chicago Tribune from a month ago, can continue funding illegal immigrants directly. By the way, I have yet to find a single Democrat that has refuted that point. If you, as a person running for office in the Democrat Party, or a pundit, you can refute that point clearly, you are more than welcome on the show to explain that to my audience. Because as of yet, refuting the Chicago Tribune, a newspaper to the left of Slate, no, I don't think so, Chief. Hakeem Jeffries makes the entire shutdown about Donald Trump making a meme of Hakeem Jeffries wearing a sombrero and a handlebar mustache. That's it. Hakeem Jeffries, again, all the Trump administration had to do was shine a laser pointer for the Democrats to then chase around like a bored house cat. And he did it. Donald Trump has the unique political talent to pivot his enemies wherever he wants them to go. They did this with Kilmer Abrego Garcia, where you have Chris Van Hollen flying down to El Salvador, the senator from Maryland, where he ends up sitting at a table, with a couple of margaritas at the table, chatting with him, talking about how important of a father he is. Then they backed into the corner to defend the Los Angeles rioters, throwing concrete at police officers' heads, backed into defending really gross comments made by Ilhan Omar and Jimmy Kimmel, and on and on and on it goes. Now, the latest maneuver, when Hakeem Jeffries and Chuck Schumer are needed right now, this is the moment that Democrats need not to fail. This is their opportunity to win. They need to save themselves from the mercy rule at this point. Hakeem Jeffries makes it all about himself. That's it. Why? Because Donald Trump put Hakeem Jeffries in meme hell. He's been promoted from purgatory to the third circle of hell, which is just memes made of you. And by the way, now that Trump knows it makes Hakeem mad, which rule number one of the internet, nothing makes you mad. But as soon as Hakeem cried on like 6 different network exclusive interviews, by the way, I don't know how an interview is exclusive after you've given it 6 times. But anyway, Hakeem Jeffries cried about it on national television, pulled a Brian Stelter, the weeping potato, that now Donald Trump's like, oh, I know what to do. Give him a couple of more memes. It's sombrero. It's sombrero-a-thon. Toyota-thon was yesterday. Sombrero-thon is today. So here's the latest of Trump making fun of Hakeem Jeffries in any interview, period.
It's a disgusting video, and we're going to continue to make clear bigotry will get you nowhere. We are fighting to protect the health care of the American people in the face of an unprecedented Republican assault.
Again, all you got to do is ignore it or have fun with it. By the way, you can have fun with it. If Hakeem Jeffries actually walked out in a sombrero and said, well, since this is the only way to get Republicans to pay attention, this is what we're going to do, and then give a serious lecture to the American people while wearing a sombrero, like calling the meme bluff and like leaning into the skid, icy road drivers. No one from Ohio, by the way. You all suck at driving on icy roads. Moving those people aside, you would actually be taken somewhat seriously. Leaning into the skid's a good thing. It's why roasts happen. It's why you actually have the person being roasted at the roast. You have a good-natured smile, you clap at the good digs and the jokes, and you end up looking like a better person because of it. No, Hakeem Jeffries cannot do it. He literally has become the distracted ADHD child shown a collection of really shiny Lego sets. Here you go, Hakeem on CNN, making it all about the sombrero at a time when he needs to be leading the party.
But I'm sure you may have seen this. I mean, President Trump just moments ago posted pictures from your meeting in the Oval Office where he, I guess, apparently tried to hand you Trump 2028 hats. Then he posted another video, an AI video of you in a sombrero once again. This time he's in the background. You see it, the audience can see it there.
I do love that she clarifies that it's AI. Well, yeah, it's AI. You mean there aren't 4 Donald Trumps playing mariachi music? I would list that on my resume. I can multiply myself by 4 and play, a selection of Sonoran folklore, folk songs.
As a mariachi band, I think the question I have for you is, do you think that this is even a White House, a president that cares to negotiate in good faith at all? Because it sounds like this meeting that you had this week has only resulted in trolling and not in any serious conversations.
Well, that's exactly the point. He's an unserious individual. The Republicans are unserious at this point. They have no interest in having a good faith conversation. And all of the behavior, erratic, unhinged behavior that we've seen subsequent to that White House meeting should suggest to the American people who actually is trying to drive us toward a government shutdown.
I love it. And I love it for two reasons. Number one, because the American people, by polling data, they're not taking the Democrats serious here. Why? Why are the Democrats not being taken seriously when Trump puts Hakeem Jeffries in meme hell? Because Hakeem Jeffries has spent the last several months claiming anything and everything is fascism. Hakeem Jeffries has spent all of his time focusing during the Biden years on the importance of LGBTQ plus this and the equality of gendered sports where you've got guys playing on women's teams, and he's made a mockery of himself. Now he wants to say, all right, I'm ready to be a big boy. And no one believes him. When you call your opponent super stinky Hitler man, yeah, well, then when you say, all right, everyone, let's negotiate like fair-minded individuals, no one believes that you actually would negotiate with Hitler. I mean, maybe you would, Neville Chamberlain, but alas, J.D. Vance did make a response today that it pains me to say I can't abide. I supported Vice President Vance. Obviously, I think he's the best looking vice president that we've had in our nation's history. And he has a lot of amazing things to say, despite, being from Ohio. But what he said today was unconscionable, and it must be called out. On the matter of the shutdown, Vice President J.D. Vance today.
So the president's been posting some images of Leader Jeffries and Senator Schumer. I saw recently. You've said that you're interested in good faith negotiations with these leaders, but what message does that send? Is it helpful to post pictures of Leader Jeffries in a sombrero if you're trying to have good faith talks with him?
Oh, I think it's funny. The president's joking, and we're having a good time. You can negotiate in good faith while also poking a little bit of fun at some of the absurdities of the Democrats' positions, and even poking some fun at the absurdity of the Democrats themselves. I mean, I'll tell Hakeem Jeffries right now, I make this solemn promise to you that if you help us reopen the government, the sombrero memes will stop. And I've talked to the President of the United States about that. Now,
how could you say that? How could you just give away the Hakeem sombrero meme like that? How could you trade that away? No, more. I say more. Don't be a squish. Don't be a neocon, Vice President Vance. You double the number of sombreros. In fact, you get out there, you put sombreros on every Democrat member of Congress. The Mexican attire will continue until morale improves. I say triple it. And then you know what? Give another $10 million to Lockheed Martin. Put sombreros on the F-22s. Full steam ahead on that policy. Now, Gavin Newsom, he's feeling really lonely. Whenever his wife goes on a date with someone other than him, Newsom, he's trying to hop into the fray with J.D. Vance, and he's going to make some memes. He's going to get in the AI meme game now. And so he posts this, which is, all right.
If you're flying today, I hope, of course, you arrive safely and on time, but you may not arrive on time because the TSA and the air traffic controllers are not getting paid today. Our military is not getting paid today, starting today, and obviously the longer this drags on, the worse that it is for the American people. So
did you get it? See, Gavin Newsom said PSA from J.D. Vance, and then it's Vance in some glasses, kind of tinted yellow with some overalls, and then like an Uncle Sam hat, which is a little weird. He's trying to make like the Minions meme joke that the Minions from Despicable Me. Here's where that came from. Do you get it? It's funny, right? Haha, it's funny, right? Because he's Trump's minion, get it? Because he's the vice president. That's the left can't meme. Embarrassing. By the way, I do want to point out, because we're all about receipts here on the show, Gavin Newsom is the guy who tried to sign legislation and got sued out the wazoo that you're not allowed to make manipulated voice advertisements about someone in government or in politics. Now, producer Nick, I may have perfect pitch, but I want to lower this to someone who's maybe not a musician like myself. Do you believe with your maybe uncouth, untrained ears that Gavin Newsom might have been manipulating the voice of the vice president in his brilliant, scholarly academic meme.
JD did sound a bit different there.
A bit different, yes. So by Gavin Newsom's own hand, maybe, I don't know, or Guantanamo Bay, El Salvador. The options really are endless. And by the way, as of 5:46 p.m. today, on with Jake Tapper, Hakeem Jeffries he's still complaining about the sombrero meme.
Said erratic, and I believe you used the word unhinged the other day.
I did.
Are you trying to draw a line between President Trump's acuity, his mental state, and what's going on here with the shutdown?
No. I'm actually referring to some of his social media posts, which didn't seem to make a lot of sense.
The sombrero and the mustache?
Correct. Well, it would seem to me that as the President of the United States, on the brink of a government shutdown, if you actually wanted to bring everyone together to try to get to a resolution in a common sense, bipartisan way.
I love it so much. So where do we actually go from here? Well, now we look to Senator Chuck Schumer's statements. Realistically, he is the guy, since Hakeem's busy in meme hell. Schumer's going to be the one that has to step forward and actually provide some leadership and some negotiation strategy. We're hearing rumblings that there are a lot of Democrats who are really in a rough position here. And the reason Schumer's going to have to come out and say something is you can't just say, well, it was Democrats who didn't want the shutdown and Republicans who caused it. And here's the key reason why. 2 Democrats and 1 independent defected from the Democrats to vote with Republicans. John Fetterman of Pennsylvania, Cortez Masto from Nevada, and then Angus King, who's an independent from Maine that almost always caucuses with the Democrats. Those have joined Republicans in voting in favor of the continuing resolution to keep the government open. So it really is Schumer who is solely standing in the way. So he was asked about that on CNN today, and he pulled one of the lamest tricks on planet Earth.
Every Republican who's gone on TV the last 12 hours or so has called this the Schumer shutdown. What do you say about that name? Senator Schumer, can you hear me?
I can't hear.
Senator Schumer, can you hear me? I don't think Senator Schumer can hear me right now. Maybe the government shutdown included audio on Capitol Hill.
First of all, well played. Very well played. I hadn't watched to the end of that clip. By the way, just so that you guys know, I often don't have the ability to watch to the end of some of the clips. I am genuinely surprised by some of the comments made. It's why sometimes the occasional word slips through. But in this instance, yeah, I'm sorry I can't hear you. I'm going through a tunnel. We see you on air right here, right now. It's like, oh, I have no 5Gs and I only have 1G in this building. Incredible. I love it. Good luck to Chuck on this one. It's not going to be a stellar decision to stick around in this shutdown. And this is where the caving and the choking is going to get real rough real quick, because as we mentioned earlier, Russ Vought is on the warpath. So he's the director of the Office of Management and Budget, and he is here to party. And by that, I mean, in a shutdown, the executive branch gets to decide what extra monies are sliced off and individuals are laid off because it's a shutdown. It's a serious situation. Congress is out for the count, so the executive branch has increased powers during a shutdown. And Democrats were told this in advance, and they said, no, we want money for illegals and pictures of Spider-Man. And Republicans said no, and so the Democrats then shut the government down. And now, OMB Director Russ Vought just froze $18 billion for New York City infrastructure projects, which, in case you were wondering, directly impacts Chuck Schumer and Hakeem Jeffries' home turf following the shutdown. So now Schumer, who's already in a very shaky place, heading into what might be a serious Senate primary race by Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. Quote, to ensure funding is not flowing based on unconstitutional DEI principles, end quote, from Russ. Number 2, Russ Vought is just now canceled $8 billion in Green New Deal climate funding throughout the government shutdown for the following states: California, Colorado, Connecticut, Delaware, Hawaii, Illinois, Maryland, Massachusetts, Minnesota, New Hampshire, New Jersey, New Mexico, New York, Oregon, Vermont, and Washington State. Incredible. The more that this continues, the more Russ is just going to hack and slash, like that Ron Swanson scene in Parks and Recreation where he's just slash it, slash it. It is very popular with the American people. Now, there's also a pretty big squeeze on the Ohio crew as well, because there are a couple of key Senate races that are coming down the pike. And I know, Producer Nick, I'm always amazed when I see Republicans acting competently immediately, initially, that aren't in the Trump administration. The NRCC, that's the National Republican Congressional Committee, came right out of the gate on the heels of this shutdown and essentially used it to pimp slap a bunch of Ohio Democrats running for Congress, either in first elections, re-elections. Rebecca Downs, our Ohio correspondent at the Daily Signal, pointed this out. Said on Wednesday, the National Republican Congressional Committee launched a new ad targeting Democrat Representatives Marcy Kaptur of Ohio's 9th and Amelia Sykes of the 13th Congressional, as well as Greg Landsman of the 1st for their role in the shutdown. This ad is now running openly in their districts.
Democrats shut it down.
Democrats are pushing for the shutdown, and they will get blamed if it happens.
Democrats refuse to fund the government. So now military troops, police, and Border Patrol lose their paychecks. Because of Democrats, veterans, farmers, small businesses lose critical funding. Disaster relief cut off. Democrats are grinding America to a halt in order to give illegal immigrants free health care. Tell Democrats, stop the shutdown.
I mean, that's coming to play. Where are the Democrat ads on this? They're not there. You say, Tony, but wait a minute. There has to be some kind of Democrat plan, focus, approach right now. Yeah, it's
returning back to Detroit.
It's Sri Chanadar. I'm sure Hank Johnson's going to get out his guitar and sing a song. There is no strategy. There's no plan. Hakeem Jeffries is getting memed. Now, this does bring us to a couple of genuinely important issues on the markets, because right now, of course, we're on the other side of the first day through the shutdown. The Dow closed at one of the best days it's ever had, all-time high. The S&P 500 also had a smash day, all-time high, huge movement over in the stock market for a couple of reasons. And that's good stuff, but we have a long-term look at the shutdown to consider. And so, for some of the downspout on what's expected for you, the humble economic animal here in the United States, or, just a regular person, we go over to Robert Netzle, CEO of Inspire Investing. You guys loved him so much last time, we decided to bring him right back. How's it going, man?
Hey, it's great to be back. Thanks, Tony.
Well, I won't take too much of your time here, but our audience really wants to know, what is the market likely to do regarding government shutdown stuff, or is it just going to let all of the water roll off its back, kind of with the other chaotic parts of the stock market this administration so far?
What is the stock market likely to do? I think that's a trick question. Yeah.
Right.
What kind of setup is this, man? What are they likely to do? It's going to go up or down. One of the two. No, I jest, but it is always the question, right? And the thing is that for investors to keep in mind is that the stock market leads the news. So the things that happen today have already been thought through in the market 6 months ago. And that's what the smart money knows. And so the retail investors typically react to the news like, oh, we figured it out. They didn't, extend the budget last night. We had a shutdown. That must be bad. So I'm going to sell this morning, or something of that nature. That is the bad way to invest, right? You don't want to invest reactively. As you can see this morning, the markets are sort of shrugging it off as far as this particular shutdown. It's always this brinksmanship. Seems like every year for the past, decade, that it's the Dems or the Republicans or whoever it is, at that moment in time, that is leading this to the brink and saying, look, it's going to be disaster. You guys over there have to do something, or it's just, everyone is going to suffer the consequences out there in the world. But the facts of the matter are, it doesn't really affect that much. It really is a sentiment that drives the market more than some of these decisions. Now, if it goes prolonged, there could be economic damage. I don't think the administration is going to let that happen. My personal views are I think the Democrats have overplayed their hand. I don't think that them forcing this, and I do think it is the Democrats that have forced the shutdown. They had a very clean bill that they could have, got behind, clean budget plan that they could have got behind. But they want to kind of undo some of the big, beautiful bill stuff and get the money back into, some places where we shouldn't be spending money, healthcare for illegal immigrants and things of that nature. And they're not going to get that. And instead, what they've done is they've handed Trump some godlike powers to make the cuts he's wanted to make from day one in the federal government that they're not going to be able to rewind. And so I do think they have made a tactical blunder here. We'll see. Related to the markets, I don't think it's going to be a big deal. In fact, if Trump can enact some of the things that he's been wanting to do, the Doge sort of cuts in the federal government that will just carte blanche reduce our government spending, I think the markets might react positively to this. So it's something to watch. Those are my thoughts.
I think it's a really good point. We talked earlier on in the show about how with some of the Democrats, 2 Democrats, then 1 independent who caucuses with the Democrats defecting to vote alongside Republicans really gives Senate Democrat leadership a bad look here. But again, kind of focusing on market-based stuff, if the market is, again, becoming less kind of reactionary to the point, but it's in that setting, that trend setting, that news setting state, what moves do you see the market making right now that might be a little bit predictive in the upcoming pieces of news? Is there anything that's catching your eye right now in the market that's worth keeping an eye on?
Yeah, markets like certainty. You hear that a lot. Uncertainty creates volatility, typically negative volatility in the markets. And so what I see...
This must be what my wife tells me. She hates surprises. I hear you.
Yes. My wife is the planner in our marriage as well. I'm the spontaneous one. So, that's always fun. As far as the kind of macroeconomic themes we see, we're seeing the plan for peace in the Middle East. Those sort of things being put on the table. We're seeing certain sort of progress perhaps being made even on the Ukraine front and some potentials there. We're seeing a lot of developments here domestically with the crackdown on crime and there's a lot of good things going on and a lot of, and even if you disagree, depending on where you're at with this issue or that issue, even if you disagree with the direction they're resolving, the fact that they are resolving or leading to a potential resolution is good for the markets because whether it's A or B, and you could think A is bad or B is bad or A is good or A or B is, but the markets like just knowing what is so that the companies can make plans, they can move forward. And, we're seeing that. We're seeing trade deals. We're seeing, the whole tariff plan sort of come to fruition and understanding how that's going to affect a lot of different areas of business or not affect different areas of business. This deal with Trump RX is huge. So I think there's a lot of things on the table that seem to be offering a path towards a resolution and a lot of the uncertainty that maybe has been hanging around there. The market's going to like that. And I think that's why you're seeing, like today, the market's not freaking out over a government shutdown. We're getting more certain and markets can build on that. It's going to be constructive. And to me, I think, we've got more upside to go. I do think this is a golden age for America that we're heading into, God willing. There's not that there's not challenges, but I love the direction our country is heading. I love the direction our economy is heading. And I think there's a lot of people that feel the same way.
Absolutely. Robert Netzle, again, always great to have you back, CEO of Inspire Investing. We're going to have to swing things over to a commercial break for the radio crew, that is. We'll continue over on the live stream. Don't go anywhere. It's the Tony Kinnett Cast here on the Daily Signal. Now, just for you guys, a little bit of special bonus tonus this evening because there is an official Democrat response. That's right. There's an official Democrat response to the shutdown. They've finally done it. I can't believe it either. It may be one of the worst, most awkward optical decisions in history, but I wanted you to experience, this is the message they're going to reach the youths. It's called Kitty explains the shutdown.
Republican and Democrat kiddies cannot agree on what should be funded. Democrat kiddies want you to have health care. Republican kiddies do not. Republican kiddies control the Senate, House, and the White House, so they're using that to cut your health care and give money to billionaires. Democrat kitty tries to negotiate, but Republican kitty keeps running away. He has a vacation to get to. Uh-oh, suddenly the money you pay for your health insurance has tripled. Thanks, Republicans.
What on God's green earth was that? What on, I mean, again, who are you going for there? So it's got like the AI kind of Instagram reel, like youth brain rot there, but it's just, did you guys know that I'm really good and they're very, very bad? More at 11. And then the claim on Republicans are going to go on vacation. Politico from Adam Wren, their national, like their senior top political correspondent man. This guy does all of the writing on this stuff. Friend of the show as well, just so happens to be, pointed out that the Democrats were planning a big honkin' wine tasting vacation for a lot of their members during the shutdown. So, yeah, I can see why a lot of Democrats right now are begging the Democrat leadership that posted this to take this down. Holy crap, the cringe. Who are they convincing with that? Producer Nick?
Cat ladies.
Okay, that's fair.
The last core demographic they have.
That's fair. That's very true. Now, there has been some good over the last couple of days. Pete Hegseth, Secretary of War, he addressed all the brass over at Quantico in Virginia, and there was a lot of speculation on this was going to be some big war address. We're going to take Venezuela. We're going to take the Middle East. We're going to take on Russia. We're going to take me to dinner. I don't know. There was a lot of speculation. And it turned out that the big, huge, massive presentation was that Hegseth brought all of the brass in to say, you guys are leaders, quit embarrassing the United States. We're no longer doing the goofy DEI crap. And he listed the things that will no longer be a focus for any branch of the United States military.
No more identity months, DEI offices, dudes in dresses. No more climate change worship. No more division, distraction, or gender delusions. No more debris. As I've said before, and will say again, we are done with that.
And by the way, incredibly popular among the troops. Incredibly popular. It is. And by the way, not just among, the privates, not just among some of the younger officers getting out of academies, but the entire NCO wing of the military. I'm pretty sure there were at least 36 unsanctioned E4 mafia parties in the country last night, and rightfully so. Every command sergeant major is just having the best day he's ever had in his entire life. Standards again, no dudes in dresses, no guys out there saying, oh yeah, I'm actually a Viking, I'm actually hinga-dinga-durgan, I get to wear a beard now. No, standards matter. And by the way, the reason, other than, the particularly important not having to maintain something that could get in the way when you're in the field, like being a beard, the other reason the military has standards on things like beards is the practice of precise, disciplined maintenance. That is something that is very, very important. And yeah, I'm sorry, but the idea that there are physical standards, the idea there are training standards, in fact, as Hegseth said, for everyone in the military, the highest physical standard would become the norm. And though Mazie Hirono may yell and scream and cry, pull-ups are in fact going to be a part of it. That's a very, very good thing. Now, this upset every lady in media who spends all day straddling a chair. Every single lady in media that is on the left side of the aisle used this as an opportunity to go after Pete Hegseth. But here's the problem. Guys, there's really not a feasible way to say that what Hegseth is doing as a Secretary of War is bad. Like, we're going to put all of our weight and our support behind our troops. Trump got up after Hegseth, said the exact same thing. So how are they going to do it? They're going to do the J.D. Vance thing. They're going to call him weird. Remember J.D. Vance, a father and a husband, Christian conservative? They're like, oh, he's weird. And then he got on stage with Tim Walz, and Walz was like, I'm friends with school shooters. Ha ha! And everyone's like, oh my good sweet Lord. J.D. Vance was no longer the weird one. Now they're going to do this with Hegseth. So as is the classic Democrat way, do the exact same thing over, expecting a different result. Here are the ladies of The View who are angry that in the Army, push-ups are now going to be more than window dressing.
I'm actually really befuddled by why he did that. The optics were terrible, meaning all of our top military brass are all in one place, and we spent $6 million to get them there. That didn't make a lot of sense to me.
Can you believe it? That like they showed up to a meeting in person with their boss? Oh no. Man, oh wait a minute. The brass of militaries have in fact met with the Secretary of War or the Secretary of Defense or the President before. That's been a thing. Consistently, in fact. You know, I've actually met my boss in person. All of us together, in fact, have done so.
It also didn't make a lot of sense to me that he was saying that he was going to toughen physical standards and review the anti-hazing policy by sort of implementing a hazing policy.
Physical standards being a hazing policy. Incredible. So he's saying, we're going to review the idea that, you know, if you call someone a pronoun or whatever, then, you know, that you're really bad or horrible, scary. They're getting rid of the goofy stuff. And she said, oh, they're implementing hazing, that you actually have to meet physical fitness tests in order to be in the military. By the way, when I'll never forget the very first time that I was exposed to how many people in or around the service are just slobs. I had I was trying to get into West Point. And so I got into this thing called Summer Leadership Seminar at West Point. You take a bunch of high schoolers, you throw them at West Point, you send them through a week there. And I looked up and down my section the very first time that I ever stood in formation. And I kid you not, there were two girls in our section. They were both large individuals who did not complete a single calisthenic along with the rest of us. The moaning and the wheezing could have substituted for Louisiana accordion music. And none of us said a word. But apparently that the standards, the exercise themselves, that's hazing. Remember, Mazie Hirono. Do you realize a pull-up is bad, Kash Patel?
And then also he said he was going to return to the highest male standard for combat positions because the troops were fat. Yeah. I don't understand how that was supposed to be an uplifting message for.
It's not supposed to. First of all, the people that don't find that message uplifting are the people who are too obese to complete that physical standard in that role, or people who sympathize with really bad standards. You know, when Coach Sig of Indiana University football talks about how you need to not suck and be a really good football team, it's really hard for me to be mad at him because I really like seeing the Indiana University football team win. Now, if someone gets out there and they start, you know, dunking on kind of the losing team, or God forbid you're part of a team of losers, well, then you get really butthurt about it. That's just really bizarre. That's not uplifting. That's not love and hugs and a participation trophy and some orange slices. What's going on here?
Our military.
Maybe he's referring to Colonel Sanders.
It was really a bizarre thing. He started talking about woke DEI policies. By the way, there are no gender quotas in the military. By the way, he fired more than a dozen military leaders, many of them people of color and women. He fired the chairman of the Joint Chief of Staff, General Charles Brown Jr., who is African American. Yeah. He fired the first woman to command the Navy, Admiral Lisa Franchetti.
By the way, she says, well, there's no like quotas for anything. And then she starts listing a group of people that the Democrats held up over the last 10 years because of their gender and their color. Like he said, we're going to value like your skills and what you can do to protect the people of the United States whom you're supposed to be defending. We're going to make sure our soldiers are cared for, our sailors, our airmen, our Marines. We're going to make sure they have everything they need and that the person next to them is going to be physically and mentally capable enough to have their back. Because the last thing that you want when you are in a situation where you're under artillery fire or you need someone to provide cover fire for you while you're rushing the next position, the last thing you need is some squeaming, whining person going through a transition who's too obese to roll over and fire cover fire. It turns out that doesn't inspire troops. And again, she says that this isn't an uplifting message. Since Hegseth has stepped into the role, at the time SecDef, now SecWar, we have seen an explosion in military recruitment.
I don't understand the sort of hypocrisy of firing these people, having all these people meet together and then denigrating them.
Did you look at it? They're looking at him like he has two heads.
Well,
They weren't. They were not, by the way. And how do I know that? Because I've spoken to several of the officers in the shops of those staffers who were there, of the brass that were there. Everyone that I've heard from. And again, friends of mine who are currently in staff in various positions in the Army and the Air Force and the Marines. I don't know if I have any close naval officer friends. Yeah, well, it turns out that, again, good ideas end up getting a good response from people who do put their lives on the line to make sure those things are carried out. The funniest example of all of this, though, is Molly Jong-Fast, who I once caught trying to sneak her way through CPAC, and I kid you not, sniffing her own boogers that she picked from her nose. Molly Jong-Fast, who once called herself a conservative, and MSNBC trotted out, is, again, like every other old liberal woman, is befuddled at the idea that there would be standards in anything.
And Molly, let's talk about this. We know there actually are some serious things are just being discussed in this meeting as well. There's some new Pentagon policy directives about perhaps de-emphasizing troop presence in Europe, making more of a focus on the homeland and the like. But that's the kind of stuff that's going to happen behind closed doors and will come out in the hours and days ahead. What we were there for full display for the cameras was a political speech, and it was an anti-woke, something you'd hear from a Fox News host. I guess that's appropriate, rather than someone who is,
haha, is that jealousy I hear?
the Secretary of Defense. And there was, we know the Pentagon has really restricted press access to the building, to events and the like. But one has to assume, just based on reporting ahead of this speech, this won't sit well with a lot of the 2, 3, 4 stars who have dedicated their lives to serving this nation.
Yeah, I think we're going to see pushback to this. I think a lot about the Vietnam War, which was sort of a moment in an end of discrimination. There was much, the Army really focused on making an anti-discrimination, and they ended up really helping the Army in a lot of different ways because people were a lot, it was just a much.
Okay, word salad supreme from the lady in the denim blazer that I'm pretty sure she stole from Matthew McConaughey. But anywho, as a public service announcement, if there is an individual who makes their glasses the key feature of the coloring of their face, like they're choosing a type of glasses that have to tilt or tint their face green or blue or red or turquoise or whatever, you shouldn't take them seriously. And again, as a glasses-wearing individual, if the frames on your glasses are so thick that it looks like you somehow bolded, like you highlighted your glasses and clicked the bold key in Microsoft Word, I just really don't trust your choices on a whole lot. But the argument, of course, being the most important part, that the Vietnam War was the key moment that the Army turned into something good, is the most historically illiterate take in all of history. The Vietnam War is not, in fact, famous for, man, that's the moment when the Army really got itself together. No, it's not.
Much more egalitarian force, and it ended up being really great for the military. Woke doesn't come from recent, it comes from experience in the military.
Woke comes from experience in the military. Ah, yes. I remember my fondest, anyone's fondest memory on Sand Hill at Benning is when Sarnt busts into the room at 4 a.m. and says, all right, give me 40 pronouns. Truly a special time in everyone's life. All right, sound off by race. Nope, never got that one. Never heard that one.
Do you think this is kind of bizarre? And if you think about Winston Churchill, the idea that people have to be thin in order to run the military seems kind of wild.
Yeah. Oh, kind of wild. Yeah. Yes. Winston Churchill famously, oh yeah, that's right. The civilian administrator of the English military. The civilian administrator is the prime minister. Incredible. Again, dumb. Yeah, that's the standard. That's what they're going to trot out right now. So you've got Hakeem Jeffries chasing around the laser pointer of memes. You have the liberal media who can't really explain the shutdown either, because they don't really know if they should cheer the left on the shutdown or say it's Republicans' fault and the shutdown is bad. Because, by the way, according to Harry Enton over on CNN, we are starting to see data that the left at this point, at this time, really wants the Democrats to lean into the shutdown and keep it shut down a lot more than they used to. Essentially, what the Democrat voting base wants right now is to make this a liability for themselves for midterms. Here's just a bit of the Harry Enton polling data.
Yeah, what are we seeing? This is an American public that more so than ever before I've looked at the polling is willing to go to a shutdown. What are we talking about here? Well, let's take a look. What Americans wanted pre-shutdown? Well, traditionally speaking, I got the 2013 numbers. The majority of Americans want compromise, no shutdown. You go back to 2013, just 33% said stand on principle, even if it means a shutdown. Come to this side of the screen, we see an even split, right? 50% of Americans say they want a compromise, no shutdown. But up like a rocket, standing on principle, we see now 49%, basically an even split on Americans either wanting a shutdown or, in fact, saying they want their side to stand on principle. I think we're hearing a lot of that from Chuck Schumer.
Which group has shifted the most in terms of compromise or not?
You know,
I love questions like that. I love that. This isn't a dig at CNN. I love like very awkward segue. And which group is it, Harry? That is the ones who moved. Gee, I wonder which political party did the most moving.
So interesting to hear those clips of Chuck Schumer being played back from 2013, from all those past shutdowns.
And just from March, right?
Potential shutdowns. And what has changed significantly is Republicans have always been willing to basically say, you know, we should shut down the government and stand on principle. But now Democrats, a significantly larger portion of Democrats say, you know what, let's stand on principle. What Democrats want a pre-shutdown? You go back to 2013, just 18% of Democrats said stand on principle. The vast majority, 76%, 3 in 4 Democrats said compromise, no shutdown. Look at this side of the screen. Look at this percentage that said stand on principle back in 2013. It was 18%.
Now you're seeing Democrats at 47% who say stand on principle, 52% on a compromise. Now, that's very concerning for the Democrats. That's a very bad number. That 52 means, wait a minute, you should have about half of the Democrat senators that want to compromise then, right? No. Only John Fetterman, Cortez Masto, and then Angus King, sort of the independent who caucuses with the Democrats. That's not a stable number. That 47% who want the Democrats to stand on principle, a principle of what? Republicans, when they shut the government down before, it was saying we're not going to spend any more money. We're going to stay at the previous levels of spending. We're not going any higher. Fine, we'll shut the government down. Now you're seeing Democrats go, if you don't give us more money and to fund illegal immigrants on healthcare, in fungible grants to states, blue states that can then spend the money on illegals, well then, we're going to shut the government down because we're not going to get what we want. Okay. And the Democrats also then voted today down a measure that would have allowed this to essentially nuclear option its way through with a 51 vote majority for a short time. Now, in the meantime, because you have Russ Vought doing his stuff, the Democrats are on a ticking clock here. The media really wants the Democrats to hold this one out. The voting base of the Democrats increasingly wants Democrats to try holding this one out, but there's still a sizable base who wants people like Fetterman, Cortez Masto to be the ones who end up winning here. Swing state, Pennsylvania, and Nevada. So who's actually going to win? Well, at the moment, I guess whoever can make Hakeem Jeffries cry with enough pictures and mariachi music. So, with that, have a wonderful evening. We'll see you here tomorrow. It's the Tony Kinnett Cast here on the Daily Signal, nationally syndicated and first on 93 WIBC. Take care.